Hi everybody, and welcome to this playlist where we will perform a complete project architecture, which is going to be a great exercise to practice your knowledge in Autocad. We will make this step by step, explaining the commands that I'm using in each situation. However, some parts that are just repeating a specific method, I will fast forward it in order to not make this video very long. This exercise is the floor plan of the ground floor. On the description of the video you can find the link to download the PDF file, so you can easily follow the measurements. Let's start. Okay, this is the main window that appears whenever we start AutoCAD. To start a new drawing, I'm going to click here to choose a template from this list. And for curiosity, ACAD.DWT is for imperial units, like inches or feet, and ACAD ISO is for metrical. However, it's possible to edit these settings later, there is no problem for that. Once we open our new file, we can start editing the units. We type units and press Enter to open the Drawing Units window. In this drawing, we will use millimeters as the units on this project. So, we choose decimal here for the type, and then the precision can be just 0. That's because we are not going to use lines with dimensions under 1 millimeter. At the angle, we can keep the settings defined by default. And on insertion scale, we set the units that we are using in this file. They are millimeters. And by the way, the units in this tab are just needed to export content to another file. But anyway, I think it's always better to define the correct units here. Then close the window. Now, in this floor plan, we are going to start drawing the walls, so it's time to create new layers on this project. I'm going to click on the layer properties, is this icon here. Then here, I click with the right button, go to New Layer, and create a new layer with the name Walls, for example. The important is that you give an easy name to recognize it. And also be aware that here the layers are displayed by alphabetical order. Then for the color, I keep it white. But an important note, the layer 0, we don't want to draw objects there, as this is a kind of no layer, and we will just use it to create blocks. But don't worry, that's something you will learn later on this tutorial. Then, on the status bar, we are not going to use the grid and snap modes for now, so we just turn them off. I turn on the ortho mode to draw horizontal and vertical lines, and with that activated, it's going to be much faster to draw. You will see, as in this project, almost everything is horizontal and vertical. Along with that, we need the object snap turned on, and that's crucial if we want to connect and intersect objects in precise points. Clicking on the arrow, I can switch on or off the modes that we need during this project. So let's start drawing, but first I'm going to specify the current layer to walls. I'm going to activate now the command polyline, and the first line I will draw it with a length of 4900 millimeters. Then it follows one vertically down with 400. Then is 2200, after 700 millimeters, then 3700, and I just need to follow the lengths on the PDF file until I reach the beginning. And remember that the line lengths here have to be on millimeters. Then the last line, I will draw it vertically, and if I can connect vertically this line with the origin, it means that almost sure I have typed all the lengths correctly. For the interior outline of these external walls, I am going to use the command offset, set for the offset distance 350, click on the polyline and make an offset to the internal side. And that was a simple way to draw all the external walls. What's next? The internal walls. But before continuing, let's save this drawing with a specific name. For drawing the internal walls, I will be using a lot the command polyline and offset, but of course there are hundreds of ways to make this process. I decided to start from the garage. With the command polyline, I go to this endpoint, move to the right, type 2700 and draw this vertical line towards the opposite external wall. Then I click now when the object snap point perpendicular shows up. Then let's make the internal outline of the laundry room, using the dimensions from the PDF file. Press enter to use the polyline again. Now I type 2050 mm to the right. Then this line has a length of 3400. The next, I can move that endpoint. It's possible to do this even in the orthomode. Then I go down and click on this intersection. Finally, I'm going to connect to the endpoint. After this, I go to the lobby. And I will make this side. From here I draw 1700 up, then 1400 to the left, and for this line I need to add the width of the wall to 1650, the distance marked in the PDF, and the total is 1800. That's what I need to type. Let's now use the offset to the following. The offset distance is the wall width 150 mm. Click on the line at the right of the garage and click again for putting a new line on this side. Next, without pressing any key, I offset the polyline at the laundry. And then the other one here. Great, so I can now press enter. Next, I'm going to select these two polylines, and by clicking on this grid, I can move this endpoint to the intersection. On the one next to it, when I click, you can see this box that appears. And why? Because there are two objects overlapped and the selection cycling is switched on. The first polyline is the one that is now selected, so I click, and then I do the same action as before. Now, as this process takes a few minutes, and also because I think you will be able to complete the walls by yourself, I'm going to fast forward it and focus only in specific details. For example, here I have overlapped lines, but don't worry because we will delete all the duplicate objects at the end. So if you think you will save time putting some objects above others, it's okay for the moment. Then in the living room I put temporarily a thick wall dividing it from the next part of the house. Now I want to offset these lines, but as I drew them with the command line, I need to merge them to a single polyline. That's simple. We can do this easily with the command join. Then I'm going to offset the last object 150 mm to the right. Then draw the remaining walls. All the dimension lines are available on the PDF file. Once I finish, I'm going to use the command trim. I click on the command, select all the objects, press enter, and then I erase the segments that I don't need. A good way to not forget to delete any lines is to start, for example, on the left side and go progressively to the right part. After trimming all that I need, there can be still some duplicate objects here. On the Modify panel, I click on this arrow and find the icon Delete Duplicate Objects. I select everything, and on this window I can keep the default options because all the objects have the same layer properties. Press enter and all the duplicate lines were erased. Okay, before stepping forward to the next chapter, we have some dashed lines to insert here. First, I use the command line to draw them in their own place. I select them, and after I go to the layer properties and click on the option to change the line type for the layer walls. Currently, there is just one line type available for this layer. Click on Load to access more. In all these options, I'm going to select this one. Then I close the window. With the line selected, right-click, I go to the properties, and I can now change the line type to the new one. Nice! As you see now, the lines have a dashed appearance. The only problem is that it's a bit hard to see, as it has a small scale. So what I need to do is to change the scale to a bigger value. Here. For example, if I change to 5, I can see it better. But let's put even a bit more. 8. Now it's okay. Finally, we finished drawing the walls, and to make sure we are not going to modify these objects accidentally, I'm going to lock the layer for now. It's on this icon. So, as you see, the colors now are darker. I'm not able to modify anything in that layer, although I can always select the objects or use its object snap points. That can be useful to draw objects in another layers. Okay, back on the layer properties, let's create 3 new layers. For the first, I give the name of staircase. The second, doors. And the last one, windows. Oh, as they are locked, I have to select them and click here. For now, I'm going to set light colors for each of them, as they are easy to distinguish on my workspace. And don't worry, because for printing purposes, I will choose darker colors. The next element that I'm going to draw is the staircase. It's not hard, but it has a couple of details. First, don't forget to change the current layer here to staircase, that's very important. Then, turn on the command line. As the thread width is 25 cm, go to this endpoint, move up and type 250. Draw a horizontal line up to the opposite wall. Next, with the command offset, I type O and press enter. I can draw the other threads very quickly. Specify 250 for the offset distance. Click on the line. Then I can see on the prompt sentence, specify point on side to offset, or these three options. I'm going to choose multiple, type M and press enter, to place several objects with a 250 mm distance between each other. It's very simple. I just click 4 times and press enter. Now I'm going to draw the railing. This is very easy. The first line is located at 50 mm from the wall. I draw it vertically till the top. And the second line, also 50 mm, but this time to the left of the first line. Then the last rises. It's a bit more complicated, but I will show you one of the several ways to do it. I'm going to start with the vertical line, which is where the staircase starts. It's located at 1250 mm from the wall, and the length of the line is a bit shorter, just 870 mm. And that is the run width of the first riser. Then I'm going to draw an arc using the start, center and end points. I click here for the start point. The center, I'm going to place it at 300 mm down, and the end point, I click here. Next, I'm going to offset the arc with a distance of 50 mm to the other railing outline. To draw the remaining threads, I'm going to use the path array. It's located here. I select the object to array and then I click on the path. And what happened? More than 400 lines were generated because the spacement between objects by default was set to 1 mm. Don't worry, because if I click on this icon, I can unlock the number of items, and then I can set 5, which is the number that I want. Finally, to distribute these 5 lines equally along all the path, I have to change the option measure here and switch to divide. Now it looks better, but before saving this array, uncheck associative to not convert this to an array object. Now I just need to extend those lines to the walls. I type EX and press enter, select the boundary edges, and then click on the lines to extend. But I'm going to reactivate the command again to extend the lines also to this arc. Okay, finally you can draw this end side of the railing. As it doesn't have specific dimensions, just do it how you wish. It's not very important. So, to finish the stair, I'm going to trim the line segments that are not necessary. For example, those ones inside the circle. Then press escape and delete those 2 lines. And trim these parts of the railing. Get rid of this duplicate line. Press delete because there was another under it. And to be more organized, I select the objects and group them. In the next chapter, we will create the windows and doors to insert them on the floor plan. We are going to use blocks for that operation. Let's start with the window. And it's very important that you draw the objects for your blocks in the layer 0. So I switch the current layer to 0. Then I'm going to draw the window with the command line using the measurements available on the PDF file. This line has the length of the exterior walls, which is 350 mm. Then, I'm going to make a horizontal line at 50 mm above the bottom. And its length is exactly the length of the window. I type 1200, as most of the windows in this floor plan have this measurement. Finally, on the opposite side, I will use the command mirror, select the line, go to this midpoint, and make a vertical mirror line here. For the remaining object, I'm going to offset the horizontal line with a distance of 50 mm. I click on it and copy it above. Now, an important information. Windows and doors are usually representative elements on the floor plans. The important thing is that the size of the gap to place them is correct. Now let's continue. We want to convert a window to a single object, as it will be much more comfortable for us to use it on the drawing and for moving and copying purposes. Basically, I'm going to create a block. Go to the block panel. Click on Create the block. On the first blank, I type the block name, for example, window. Then I click on this button to select the objects. I'm going to open a selection through all the window. Then, on base point, the option Specify on Screen is ticked, and it means that if I click on OK, the program automatically prompts me to specify the base point. It's simple, so I choose this one for example. And as you see, the block is now completed. To insert a window in the project, first I switch the current layer to Windows. I go to this button, Insert a block, and choose the window. As you can see, I can place the block anywhere on the workspace, and it's also located on the layer windows. You can see that changed the color to blue. But do you remember? Before I told that we should put the objects on layer 0 for creating a block. Why? Suppose I have these objects in the layer staircase, for example, and I want to create a block with them. I repeat the process as before, and after finishing, I select the block, I change it to a different layer, but you can notice that the color hasn't changed. Basically, what really happens is, the objects that compound the block stay on their original layers, except if they were created on the layer 0, because actually the layer 0 is not a real layer. Now you can insert the windows on the floor plans without big issues. But before, I'm going to show you to add parameters to a block. It's a very useful utility, you will see. In this case, we will create a grip to change easily the size of the window. And these kind of blocks are called dynamic blocks. First, we have to open the block editor. We can click on this icon on the block panel and then select the window. Another way to access the block editor is select the block reference, click with the right button and then click here. OK, now we are in the block editor mode. Here we can add or remove objects to our block, and then all its block references on the drawing update automatically. Besides that, we can add a new parameter from the ones in the panel at the left. And don't worry, because you will understand all this at the end. I'm going to click on Linear to add a distance parameter along the length of the window. Then, a parameter by itself doesn't have a practical effect. It's required that I associate an action to it. I switch to the Action tab, and for this case, I'm going to add a stretch to the parameter distance1. Select the parameter, then specify the point to associate with the action. I choose this. Then specify a stretch frame. It's going to be all this part. Select all the objects except the first line. Also, when you are selecting, don't worry to keep the parameters out of the selection, because they don't count. Press Enter. I save the block and close the block editor. Back in the normal workspace, select the block, and the distance parameter is represented by this triangle. Clicking on it, I can change the length of the window by typing the new distance. Can you see? It's so easy and practical. To insert the windows on the floor plan, I make sure that the current layer is Windows. Then I go to Insert a block and click on Window. To place the window on this room, I hover this endpoint, move to the right, and put it around here. As it says 707 on the distance, I type 700 just to look more organized. And yes, when looking at a PDF file, you notice that I haven't put the precise locations of the windows and the doors in the rooms. Actually, the purpose of this exercise is to make you decide to place these blocks wherever you want. Just imagine that you are the architect and you are creating this project. Of course, when you draw the first floor, you need to take in consideration the position of the windows here. Now, let's continue with the other windows. A method that I like to use is with the command copy. Use a window that's already on the floor plan. It will make this process quickly. It's better to switch to the polar mode here, for being easier to move the windows around. I put this window here. Now, for example, I type 800. Important. It's always good to have a window besides the drawing, so I can copy it when necessary. To place a window in the middle of the room, I choose a base point in the middle. Then I click on this midpoint, move it up and type an extension of 50 to place the window exactly on the correct location. Then you just need to continue putting all the remaining windows on the drawing. Just follow the PDF file. On the side walls, I have to make a rotation to the window. I type RO and press Enter. Click on this point. Then rotate 90 degrees. Finally, copy the window to the walls at the right. For the windows that have a length different than 1200, use the stretch parameter to resize it. Okay, before moving to the doors, let's add a new parameter to the window block. This new parameter will switch the window upside down. I'm going to double-click on one of the windows to access the editor mode. And notice that all the blocks that have this icon are dynamic blocks. This time I will add a flip parameter, and this one has the same logic as the mirror command. I specify this point as a reflection line and make it horizontal. This parameter is called flip state 1. Then go to Actions, click on Flip, select the parameter flip state 1, select all the objects, press Enter. Then I close the editor mode, save the changes. Now, if I click on any of the block references, a new parameter is added to the window. And look how I can easily switch the position of it. Now we are going to create the doors. Before creating a door block, don't forget to set the current layer on 0 and start with the door frame. You can follow the measurements on the PDF file or just make a different shape if you want. Here I use this intersection and then connect to the beginning. Then I draw a vertical line which represents the door itself. The length is actually the door length, 850 mm. For the door opening we need an arc, and we are going to select the option Start, Center, End. The start point is on the top of the line. The center is here, the point where the door rotates, and for the end point I use the extension tracking and I click anywhere along this axis, because the radius of the arc is already set, but of course I need to switch the direction of the arc. Look at the command bar. Hold Ctrl to switch direction. I do exactly that, wait, and aha, now I can click. Then I draw a support line here, because it's going to help me on the next step, which is, with the command mirror, I'm going to draw the frame on the other side. Select the objects that compound the frame, press Enter again, and use the midpoint of the horizontal line to draw the mirror line. Okay, I can delete the line if I want. So, once I complete the door, I can convert it to a block like what we did for the windows. Let's this time do a different way. Select the objects first, and then type B and press Enter. Here I type the name, click OK and select the base point. OK, it's done. To edit the block, I can select the door, and with the right button I go to Block Editor. That's another way. So this time we are going to add two flip actions. One will flip the door across the Y-axis and the other across the X-axis. First, finally I need the support line here. Then I click on Flip and insert one parameter at the midpoint. Then switch to Action, click on Flip, select the parameter and after select all the objects. Now I need here a second flip state. But this time I'm going to put it on this midpoint on the frame. That will flip the door around the X-axis, you will see. I go again to Action, click on Flip, select Flip State 2, and then select all the objects. So once I finish, I can delete the line that I don't need anymore, close the editor and save the changes. Now look how I can click on the flip actions to switch the direction of the door. Now let's insert the doors on the floor plan, but first put it beside the plan and place it on the door layer. Then I can insert the door on each place and switch the direction when necessary. For some of them, you have to rotate the block reference, the same that we did for the windows. There, I also need a double door on this floor plan, We can use the same block, copy it to a different place. Then I use explode to return to their former objects. Notice that the objects are back on the layer 0, that's why they changed to white color. Now I delete the frame at the right. Then, with the command mirror, I select all the objects and make a mirror line at this endpoint, and the double door is finished. Then I create a block for this, choose double door for the name, and finally specify the base point. Then I can just grab the double door on the floor plan. To finish the door captor, change the opening of this door. I explode this block reference. Use the command rotate, select this line, then use a reference for the rotation and click on both endpoints of the line. So let's rotate the line more or less until here. Finally, just use the command trim to delete the parts which we don't need. Let's learn to insert text. I'm going to create a new layer for the text labels. Click on the layer panel with the right button, go to New Layer and choose a name. Then I keep it in white color. So, to write the labels in the rooms, I'm going to use the command text. I go with the mouse there, and you can see two kinds here. I choose single line text. Then I go with the pointer to the garage, click roughly here for the start point. Then I have to insert the text height. I type 350 in order to have the text with the same size as the exterior walls. For the rotation angle, I can type the angle of rotation or just place this dashed line on the direction that I want to type the text. Then I just type a text for this room, which is garage. When I finish, I need to click on a different place, and only then I press escape. Now I can repeat the command, single text again, but this time I type a smaller text height, for example 200. Here I'm going to write the area, which is going to be 12.42 square meters. So after this I'm going to copy both texts to all the rooms. By using this method, this can be a bit faster, and then I just need to edit the text. I double click on this object and change the name to its correct label, which is kitchen. Then click on the next and do the same. This one is the laundry. Okay, after changing all the rooms, I want to put the correct area for each of them. Okay, I can copy all the areas from the PDF file, that's true, but I think it's better if you learn to calculate an area in Autocad. It's an easy process. On the Utilities panel, click on the arrow below Measure, then go here to Area. To calculate an area, I just draw a polygon. And once I define all the vertices, I press Enter and the area shows up on the screen. So in this case it's square millimeters. And you can see that it's a bit hard to understand, as it has a lot of numbers. To convert square millimeters to square meters, we have to count 6 digits from the right and put a comma there. Then I can use the same process to calculate the remaining areas of this floor plan. Before starting the next chapter, I'm going to add an arrow to the staircase to indicate the direction that goes up to the first floor. So, as this is a group, I can go to the group panel and click on the icon to ungroup. Then, I click on the icon on the layer panel to isolate the layer. Click on any object of the layer staircase, and all the remaining layers are locked. To draw the arrow, I start making lines from this right side of the stairs, go horizontally to the left, move down, and draw until here. Then just draw a diagonal line from the last endpoint, and then use the command mirror to draw the other side. How to organize the layout tabs. Now let's learn how to prepare the layout pages to print our projects. By default, 2 layout tabs are included in our file. And by default, they comprise everything that we have in the workspace. Then, it's important to understand what's the size of this paper. So, with the right button, we can go to the Page Setup Manager, and on this window, we choose the Layout tab that we want to edit. For now, I select Layout 1 and click on Modify. So this is the Page Setup Manager, and there are some options to edit here. On the first tab, we can select a printer name, or if we want to convert to a PDF file, we click on this option, DWG to PDF. Below, we choose the paper size. Let's go with ISO Full Bleed A3. Remember, ISO is for the metrical system, the units here are on millimeters. So, Full Bleed is a good option if we just want to convert to a digital format like a PDF. It doesn't come with any margins. However, for printing, it's better to choose the normal ISO. If I click on ISO A3, these margins show up, and then we shouldn't have anything outside this area. They may not fit on the paper when we print. Editing layout objects. On the page itself, we have a viewport, which is this rectangle here. It shows what is the part of the model space that we want to print. At this moment, we are on the paper mode, as it's indicated on the status bar. We can move the paper, zoom, or draw objects. If we print this layout, this is exactly what will appear on the paper. Then, we can double-click inside the viewport to switch to the model space. You can now see the same controls that we have on the normal workspace. Now pay attention to this. Each time that we zoom in or zoom out, the scale of the drawing changes, as you can see here. However, to set a precise scale, we should click on that arrow and select the scale that we desire. If I don't find the one that I want in this list, I can always click on Custom and create it. For this drawing, I'm going to choose 1/100. Now let's reposition the viewport on the paper. I double-click outside to switch to the paper space. Then I delete this line. With the command move, I put the viewport a bit up. Then by selecting it, I can resize it by clicking on the grips. Let's leave it like this. The next step is creating the title block. This is something I don't need to make on the model workspace, as it's not actually a drawing. I just want to put it in all the layout pages. So I decide to create a special layer for it. I go to the Layer Properties Manager and add a new layer called Title Block. Now you can draw the title block with legend, project information, and so on. Here you can draw it by following the measurements available on the PDF file, but that's something you can personalize by yourself. Title block. First, I'm going to draw the line at the left, which is going to be the boundary. The distance from the right is 60 mm. Here I press F8 to switch to the ortho mode and click on this point. Then we are going to insert text, but this time I'm going to the Annotate tab and click on this icon to access the text style. Here on this window I'm going to create two new styles, but I want them to be annotative. I go to New, choose for the first one Title block big. Then I tick on Annotative, and now in this blank I have to insert a paper text height. That's the real size after printing. It's exactly what you can measure on the paper. I want it to be 3 mm. Then for the second style, I put the name Title block small and the paper text height 2 mm. Then I go to Apply to close this window. To start inserting the text for the legend, I choose the style that I want, title block big, so my text height is going to be the 3 mm. Then with the command single line text, I go somewhere here, click for the start point, then I just need the rotation angle, which is 0. I draw simply a horizontal line. Then I type the prompt to insert the client name. With the multi-line text now, I insert a box for this corner until more or less here. Here is where I put the client name and the client address. Then I copy all these objects below and change the first text to drawn, and the multi-text here to drafter name. Next, I copy all together and edit them in the same way as it is on the PDF file. The scale and date use the text style title block small. Then I insert a multi-line text with two lines, scale and date. Then I draw a line at a distance of 40 mm to divide this part, and another one here. You can do it with the command offset. Another thing, if you want to add the logo of a company and you have it in your computer as an image file, you can go to the Insert tab, then attach an image, select the image that you want, this one. Then when I insert, I specify the scale factor that I desire. Here I want it as 0.2. Finally, I move the block to the top and insert the text CAD in black. And to change the text height after making the text, I go to the Quick Properties and change the value here. Now I just move a bit to the left and the title block is finished. There was a remaining line here. Add dimension lines to the floor plan. In this viewport, the dimension lines will look like this. Basically, I want them to have the text height that is visible in the paper. For that, I need annotative dimensions. Let's go to the Layer Properties Manager and create a new layer for dimension lines. As you can see, I have created this one, DLI. Go to the Annotate tab and on the Dimensions panel, go to the Dimension Style Manager. Choose the annotative style. Click on Modify. Then here I go to the Text tab. I specify the text height as 1.8 and on Symbols and Arrows I specify the same value for the arrow size. Finally, on lines, I put a tick on fixed length for extension lines and set the value 3 mm. Then, to add annotative dimensions, I need to specify here the same scale of the viewport that I want the dimensions to show up. 1/100. Then, I start drawing the dimensions on the floor plan. I click on these 2 points for the first dimension. Then I move up and click again to place it. As you can see, the extension line have now a fixed length. Then, to draw the dimension lines which are all together on the same side, I click on this icon Continue, and the new dimension line starts from the last point. So you can check how I can easily put dimensions here, until I reach the other end. When I finish, I just press Escape. Now, I want to move the dimensions a bit up. So to do that, I isolated the layer, DLI, click on Isolate, then in any object of that layer. And use the command Move for doing that. Now it's better. Important note: with the function DimLayer, I can define a layer that will contain the new dimension objects that I create. I specify layer DLI, and what happens is if my current layer is Windows, if I create a dimension line, it's automatically placed within the layer DLI. Let's switch again to the Layout 1 tab. You can see the dimension lines there because this viewport is with the same scale as the annotative dimension lines. If, on the other hand, I would have a viewport with a different scale, for example 1/50, the dimensions don't appear. Another curiosity here: the dimension lines are in front of all the other objects. How to bring them back? Select the dimension line, then click with the right button, go to Select Similar, and this option selects all similar objects, and in this case it's all the dimension lines. Then with the right button again, go to Draw Order and click on Send to Back. Now all the dimension lines are under the remaining objects. How to change the colors of the layers to print? On the Layer Properties Manager, I can change the VP color, which is the viewport color, for each layer. But of course, I need to have the viewport active, otherwise it will not work. Let's change the DLI layer to gray. Then the windows, walls, stairs, I want them to appear in black. I choose this option, white. And why this one? Because this color is white on the model space and it turns automatically black when you go to the paper space. So this is the result, the floor plan with all the dimensions on this viewport. Now, to finish this tutorial, let's give to you a couple of tips. Lock the current viewport in this icon to keep the current scale, so I can zoom and move without any issues. It may look like that I am on the paper space, but you can see that it says Model here at the status bar and the controls at the top of the viewport. Then I can rename the layout tabs to be easier to recognize them. For example, this one I can name as Ground Floor A3. So it was the end of this tutorial to draw this floor plan. Then you can continue to watch the tutorial of the first floor by clicking on the video here. Also subscribe to the channel if you still haven't done it, so you can access to all the tutorials of AutoCAD for beginners. Thank you very much and see you on the next video.